Hello, beautiful. And what I really want to know is, what is really good in your life today? This is Kia, and this is another episode of the Female Veterans Podcast. Well, I have a really incredible woman with me today. She is an Army vet, and she is the founder of Invisible Combat. She is so focused on female veteran mental health. She wants to empower and bring awareness and help facilitate transformations of healing within all of us, which is so beautiful. So I had to have her on here. And you know what else? That's not even her day job. That's what she does on the side, because you know how we roll as female veterans. We're always doing something for somebody, right? And so she's an officer working with the Equal Opportunity Department. Is that right? Is it a department in Fresno, California? In Fresno County, California. She ensures that people are not discriminated against. That's her job. I love that. Not only that, she does diversity training, sexual harassment training, and she just makes sure that her county and her city, the people who work there have a fair chance. People of color, people who don't have English as a first language that come here for the American dream. She helps them. And that's such a beautiful thing. And I couldn't wait to talk to her. This is a big story, you guys. And I can't wait for you to hear it. So welcome and thank you for being a guest today, Miss Kim Bailey.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really excited. Yes.
Well, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and talking to you over the last few days since we met. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to find out everything that you experienced as a woman serving in the Army.
I came in the Army when I was in 2005, and I was active duty until 2010, and then I served in the reserves until 2013.
So tell me, what made you join the military?
That's a really good question, because I have so many different reasons why I joined the military. So, when I was younger, I was adopted, and I was about 3 years old when I was adopted. And continuing on in my childhood years, I was adopted into a Caucasian family. And so for me personally, I'm a person with mixed ethnicity. So, I'm a person of color, a woman of color. And that left me with a lot of identity issues. And I had a lot of, problems understanding where I was and where I fit into the world and stuff like that. And so that kind of really reinforced this whole military thing with me. So I was trying to understand where I was and where I fit into the world and all those things. And I joined I was a cheerleader. So I went to Fresno State, and I was a cheerleader for Fresno State for like a really brief time in my lifespan or whatever. And so because of my adoption history and all those things, I kind of got into like really bad relationships and some of the toxic relationships that we experience as women sometimes, right? So
surely.
Exactly. So it wasn't something I wanted to be in forever. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that I need to do something different. I need to get out of the situation that I was in and not be where I was. So I thought about the military. I originally really wanted to join the Marine Corps. And so I went into the Marine Corps recruitment office, and it was amazing. They're like, oh, you're going to be so in shape. You're going to do all these great things and be like a badass, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I say badass?
You can say badass. We're veterans.
Exactly, right? So I really wanted to be a badass. I'm like, this is so amazing. This is exactly what I want to do, right? So, because I was a gymnast, and I'm like, oh, this is right up my alley. I can totally do this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I went into the Marine Corps office, and honestly, they really were more interested in like a sexual relationship with me.
Oh,
like the the Marine recruiter that I was like, talking to and really excited about joining, she was more interested in like hanging out with me after hours. Like, hey, can I take you to the movies? Can I hang out with you at my house? And all of those different things, right?
Go.
Yes. Oh, yes. So I was like, no, I don't really, this is not what I signed up for, right? It's not what I wanted. He was like, but you could totally get your college paid for it. And I'm like,
wow, really?
But this is not what this is not what I wanted. It's not what I thought. So I'm like, I don't know about this. So I did go to the movies with him, though. If anyone that cares to know, I did go to the movies with him. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is recruiting. This is not really what I wanted to do. So I'm like, okay.
Wow, that's bananas.
Yeah, exactly. So next door, there was an armed recruiter, and I was hanging outside one day outside of the recruitment office. There was like a Marine recruiter, an Army recruiter, and an Air Force recruiter, right in the same facility. And so I was sitting outside, and the Army recruiter came outside, and he was like, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm waiting for my recruiter to come out here to tell me more about the testing, right? The testing we had to do." And he was like, "Well, come inside here, and I'm going to tell you about what we're going to do, right? We're going to do for you." So I went in there, and let me tell you, this man was so amazing. Oh, my gosh. He was my mentor. He was just amazing. And he was Army, right? And I'm still friends with him to this day.
That's incredible.
So he's still friends with me on Facebook. We still talk. We still chat every now and then. He was so amazing. So he helped me. He guided me. He told me what jobs to pick. He was really a great recruiter, and he was Army. let me reinforce that. He was Army, and he was just amazing. So he took me to the recruiting office, got me my medical examinations, got me my ASVAB, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he helped me pick the job that I had, and I picked I picked to be a medic, so combat medic. So at the time, it was 91 whiskey. They changed it eventually to 58 whiskey, healthcare specialist, but eventually, the originally it was combat medic, right? So that's why I joined the military to get rid of. So backtracking. That's the reason why I joined the military, was not get rid of. I'm trying to think. To forward progress, right, from my family history, and to get a new mission, and to find a new family, and to just to become different, right, and to grow. And get out of my city. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
get out of my city,
so
right?
many of us, right? To get out of our city, to see something different, to grow as a person, to have experiences. Totally. I vibe with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's incredible. I really feel like you were so lucky to have such an amazing recruiter. Although I'm not mad at my recruiter. He did say one thing. He was like, the Navy was fun. If there was anything that I wanted to have fun, if there was a branch that I was going to have the most fun, go into the Navy, and I would really have a good time. And he was not wrong. It was not wrong about that. I had a lot of fun. And I'm grateful for that. So he did not lie about that. So tell me, you got into the Army and you're all prepared to be a combat medic.
Yes.
First, you have to go to boot camp. What was boot camp like for you?
Yes. Boot camp was amazing. I'm not going to lie. At the time that I was in boot camp, I thought it was like terrible, right? Mm-hmm. We always think it's terrible. This is a terrible experience. Everyone hates us, right?
Right.
But it was so amazing. Like, I can look back on it, right? Mm-hmm. And I can see all the amazing relationships I built and all the experiences that I built. It was amazing. Like, we did cadences, we did all these team building experiences. I can tell you this. So this is really funny. So I wear glasses. You can see this. I have glasses on, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was in the military, of course, I had glasses, but I chose not to wear them because of yes, let me tell you. So I didn't want to wear them because they were just the BCGs, right?
You're right.
At the time. I don't know. Are you familiar with those? Yes.
Yeah.
BCGs, birth control glasses, for those that don't know about these.
Yes, they worked. I wore those.
They may have worked, but they were the worst, the ugliest thing
they
in the
worked
world,
as
right?
birth control, I mean.
Yes. Oh my God. So I didn't want to wear them, right? So I pretended, let me tell you, I pretended for like a really long time. I'm not going to say years because it was like a few weeks, maybe 1 week that I got away with this. So I didn't have glasses. So I was walking around not being able to see anything. So I was like, I was in line walking around and people were like, do you know where they're going? Nope. I don't know where they're going, but I'm going to follow the person in front of me because I don't want them to know that I wear glasses. Let me tell you what happened to me when they found out that I wore glasses. Hold on, I have to take a sip because this is really, really impactful. So when they found out that I wore glasses, of course they were not happy. And they found out only because they put me in front of a line. And I had to walk somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know where they went. I can't find out where the person in front of me went. So they're like, Do you wear glasses? The drill sergeant was like, do you wear glasses? I was like, yup. Done. It was a done deal. They were like, okay, well, let me see them. Go get them. So I got them, had to put them on. It was the ugliest things in the world. Everybody knows, right? PCGs are not the prettiest things. We don't feel attractive in them. We don't want to wear them. But I could totally see, right? So this was really important when I went to the range. Incredibly important experience that I needed to have. But let me tell you what happened to my battle buddies. So because I wasn't wearing my PCGs, the drill sergeants decided to put me in front of the whole platoon. No, not even the platoon, the whole unit, right? And stand in front of them and say, your battle buddy didn't care about you. She didn't care about you. She wanted you to suffer, right? So I got to watch the whole unit bear crawl around the building at least 20 times, right? I mean, they literally had bloody hands. Their hands are bleeding.
Oh, my God.
They were also, believe me, I saw them all. They wanted to show them to me, of course, after the incident.
Oh, my God.
And they had to bear crawl at least 20 times. And so I got to stand there and watch them do this. So this is my basic training experience. The experience that I had was that I do not operate as an individual unit. I operate as a team. And if I make a mistake, everybody suffers, right? And if I make a mistake, people die. So I learned that really quickly in basic training. And after this incident, so this is one of the really early on incidents that I experienced, right? But after this incident, one of my drill sergeants, who was like really highly respected because he was, he was mean, right? He was kind of, he was kind of tough, right? He pulled me aside because he was leaving our unit. So he was about to leave. He wasn't going to stay for the whole time. And he was like, I am so proud of you. He's like, you are my favorite. Aww. I'm so proud of you. Yes, girl, I cried. I was like, this is so important to me because it was so important because he was just like, I just feel like you were just going to do great things and you were just so important to me. And before he left our unit, he put me as platoon sergeant. Let me tell you. he put me as platoon sergeant, but there was no female platoon sergeant. The reason why he did that was because I had the highest PT score out of all of my counterparts. And I had, girl, let me tell you, yes. So I was a gymnast before I came to the military, and I was a cheerleader, right? Mm-hmm. So people are like, oh, cheerleaders are nothing, right? But I was a gymnast. So I did a lot of, flipping and all those things, right? Before I came to the military. So, the military, the basic training, it wasn't that hard for me because I was like, okay, well, I was really in shape before I came there. So, it was kind of like, this is fun. This is really good. I love this, right? And so when he told me that he was super proud of me and he was just mind blown by how great I was, right? It really impacted me, because after he left, it wasn't like that,
Right.
Some of the male drill sergeants, they were like, they gave us a really hard time, as and so after that, it was like, it wasn't that great. And then, during our graduation and everything like that, I didn't have anybody that came, so because I was in foster care, right? And then I went to an adoptive family, and I had nobody that showed up. So I wish I knew what his name was, right? His first name, right? So I could tell him how impactful his message was for me, because I didn't have anybody to come to my graduation. I didn't have anybody there. So what he said was super impactful to me. And I can remember this to this day, him saying this, because I'm like, yes, I was great. Yes, I was a platoon sergeant. He made me a platoon sergeant. Yeah, because why? Because I was a PT stud. You know what I'm saying? It was great. I loved my time in basic training. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was a
great story.
Yeah.
I liked it. I like that. And I gotta love the drill sergeant with the heart of gold. Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So tell me then, after boot camp, you went to training. And so tell me, what was your active duty experience like after boot camp?
Oh my God! So I can tell you can I tell you one more thing about my training?
Yes. So, of course.
So I went into advanced individual training, right? And so when we moved from basic training to advanced individual training, I was a medic, right? So I was a combat medic. So we went into EMT training and whatnot. So it was really interesting for me, because when I went into that training, during the middle part of training, we were allowed to have MySpace or computer, right? Computer access, right? So for me, yeah, I'm just saying MySpace because we had computer access. So I was able to access MySpace. During MySpace, right?
That's what it was at the time.
I found out exactly, that was the big thing back then.
Yeah, that's huge.
So that was back in, I'm going to say 2010, maybe? I don't know, 2000. I don't know. MySpace was a long time ago. So I had MySpace or whatnot, and I found out two things. One, the guy that I was dating prior to coming to the military had died. So he had, yes, girl, yes. So he had gotten into a car accident and then passed away. And I didn't know about this because I was in basic training, and I really didn't talk to people. The only people I talked to in basic training was my immediate family, Mm-hmm. So I didn't find this out until I got to advanced individual training, and I was able to access computers, because that was probably during midway into our training, right?
Yeah.
And so I found this out, and I was like, well, so he passed away. So this is like a grieving process that I had to go through, right? I was like, I'm kind of sad about him dying because it was something that we had just started, right? We were just blossoming into whatever to happen, right? So I was kind of sad about that. And then on top of that, okay, so I met my biological mother. So she messaged me on MySpace, which is really ironic because,
What?
yes, oh yes. So she messaged me on MySpace and was like, I have been looking for you for a very long time. It was just mind-blowing to me. I'm like, wow, like, this was my mother, like my biological mother, right? Because I was adopted, and it was mind-blowing. So she was like, well, can I call you, right? And so at that time, I was in advanced individual training, right? So we were in AIT, and she couldn't call me just to call me, right? So she had to call me during the hours that I could use the phone, right? Mm-hmm. Because of course, I didn't belong to myself, right? I belonged to other people.
That's right.
So I told her to go ahead and call me in the morning before formation, because we had a formation that we had to do, right? And I'm like, well, call me a couple hours beforehand. I will make sure that I'm awake, and I will answer the phone so me and you could talk, right, about whatever you want to talk to me about. Mm-hmm. By the way, I was super excited because, I didn't know my mother, and I didn't know much about her. And growing up, I had a really huge identity problem, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the identity problem, a lot of the reasons why I, overcame the identity problem was fantasizing about what my mother was like, about what I think a lot of foster children will probably have similar, feelings about this, about fantasizing about what their mother and their parents are like, Mm-hmm. So I had these she had really huge breaches, right, to fill. Because I was like, she's this amazing person who's going to save me and who's going to make my life so amazing, right? And it wasn't like that when I found out. It really, what is it, like, diminished a lot of the things that I thought about myself when I found out what really happened. So, but it's interesting because it happened literally in AIT. So I told her to call me when I was going to formation. So the next morning, right, I got up, got my uniform. I was about to go to formation for PT, right? And I got this phone call from her. Mind you, I literally just found out my boyfriend had died. So I'm like, life sucks, somebody. Life is terrible.
I'm feeling like life was like a lot. Like it was like just a lot was going on.
Yeah, it wasn't good, right? I felt like crap, right? I'm not gonna say it. I felt like crap. So I got this phone call from my mother, and I answered it, of course. And I'm like, okay, so I'm so excited to hear from you. What's going on? Tell me about me, right? Tell me about where I came from. Like, I need to know, right? Girl, let me tell you. So, oh my God, I don't even know how to say this. So she answered the phone and she was like, let me tell you where you come from.
Oh boy.
So my mother was sexually assaulted.
Oh, honey.
And, yes, girl, yes. So she was sexually assaulted, and I was a twin. She had, I'm probably gonna cry about this part because it's really emotional to me because it really impacted the rest of my life. Everything that happened after my military experience really was impacted by this, this message, right? So she had told me that, of course, I was a sexual assault victim. Her stepfather had sexually assaulted her.
Oh, God.
At this point.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so it just wasn't a good thing, right? She was like maybe 13 years old, right?
Oh, my God.
And so I had a twin, and my twin was killed, basically, during the time before we were born. So it wasn't a good thing, right? It wasn't a good message to hear right before formation, right? And so I was crying, and I was really sad. And so the drill sergeant Lopez, honestly, he's really amazing because I actually have pictures of him and me together. He was really amazing. He came upstairs and was like, private scooter. Why are you not down in formation, right? And I'm crying. You know, I'm over there looking crazy, right? Ah, looking crazy. And he's like, okay. He literally looked at me, turned around, and walked right back out. He was like, I'm not going to deal with this. So he left. He went and got another unit drill sergeant. And told her, got a female, right, and said, can you please come to my unit and talk to this female soldier because she's really upset, right? So an African-American drill sergeant, I said African-American because she probably had a lot more like empathy, right, for my situation when she came in. Because she came in and sat with me and held me while I cried. So she was holding me while I cried. Yes, yes, exactly. So I can't say that military people, they have no empathy, they don't care, right? Because there are amazing leaders, and I was one of them to understand,
right?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have like terrible experiences in the military. I had some good experiences too, right? So she came up there and she held me and she was like, how do we make this better? Like, I cannot tell you how amazing this woman was. I don't even know her name, honestly, because at that point when she came in, I was just crying hysterically, and I was just, I just felt really bad, right? I felt like I didn't belong in this world. I just felt really, really terrible, right? So when she came inside and she was holding me and, and hugging me, and she was telling me, you matter, you're so important, right? Oh. And she was like, how do we make this better?
Yeah,
exactly. And she was like, how do we make this better, right? And she came up with the idea to invite my mother to come down to the unit and to let me have a weekend off. So let me tell you, so the military, there is some amazing people in the military, some just phenomenal leaders, right? There really are. So even though my story has some really terrible things that happened to me after this, I want everybody to know that some of my story has some phenomenal leaders. She did some amazing things for me. So she got my mother to come, and I got to meet my mother for the first time. So I was able to leave the base, even though I wasn't supposed to because I was in training, right? They let me leave the base and spend a whole weekend with her because that was the first time I ever met her. The first time I ever realized I had brothers and sisters and that I had siblings, right? And it was so amazing. It was so ridiculously amazing. I can't even tell you. So my AIT experience had that in it.
Oh my goodness.
That I got to experience meeting my mother for the first time and really, really understanding where I came from. And, that was one of the primary reasons that reinforced me joining the military, right? Because I'm over here trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out, where I fit into this world. Did I find this out? And I'm like, you know what? I have to make a difference in this world. So I already knew at that point that I was going to do something great.
Wow. That is, oh my God. And that's just, training school. It's not even official active duty like staff. Oh my goodness. That's wow. I am really blown away by that. So tell me, in your foster family, were you an only child or did you have siblings there?
No, I was not an only child. I had siblings. I had 2 brothers and a sister. They were all older than me, but we weren't really very close. So they're my siblings. But when I came to live with them, and I was adopted, right, at a pretty young age. So when I came to live with them, they were already kind of older, and my mother's their father, basically my mother's husband, right, he was killed in a drunk driving accident.
Oh no!
But pretty much when I was born. So back in 1984, it kind of shows my age and stuff like that. But he was, he died in a drunk driving accident back in 1984. So I never knew him. So my mother was my adopted mother. She was a single mother, right? So she raised all of us by herself. And I'm not going to say that it was a bad experience. She did a phenomenal job for what she had the resources for. I can say for what she had the access, the resources for, she did a great job. She had mental illness, and, she did have some issues, and because of my studies in adverse child experiences, I can say that now that, she did have she had some adverse child experiences of herself, right? That kind of, encouraged the way that she treated us, right? So I can look at my situation now through a therapeutic lens because I have that degree background, and I can say that, it really wasn't her fault, right? She tried her best with what she had, the knowledge that she had, right? But it wasn't the best for me, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
I definitely can understand that on a very personal level. So, okay. Now you're done with AIT. What was the rest of your experience like?
Yeah. So, good and bad. I had some really great experiences in the military. I'm not going to lie. I had some really good experiences. So when I went to the military, I went straight to my unit, right? I was a combat medic. And I had the opportunity to save lives. I mean, what is better than that, right? That is so amazing. I saved lives. I can't even, who can you compare that with, right? What can you compare that with, right? So some of the people that I saved lives for was, we were right in the middle of the Iraqi and Afghanistan war. So our unit was overseas. And so some of the individuals who had, injuries, like really substantial injuries, they were medevaced right to us. So we literally were called all hours of the night, didn't matter what time, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, right? We were there and we were stabilizing them and we were holding their hands. Literally, I could tell you some of the stories that I have, holding hands of individuals that came off those medevacs and just like telling them, look, you're going to make it. You are going to live. I'm going to cry because it's really emotional to me because people don't say, we lived that. We literally saved life. It's amazing. Sometimes there was 30 people in our hallways, right? And we literally had to stop and say, where does this one belong? Does he belong in the OR? Does he belong wherever he belongs, right? And we had to hold their hands and talk to them on the way to the operating room, right? That was our job. That was our mission, So,
oh my God.
So part of it's very amazing to think about all the work that we did as medics overseas. Even though we weren't necessarily combat in the actual field, right? We did so much work to save the life of the people that came from those units, and it was amazing. I can't even tell you how amazing that was. It was so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So that's what you did during the day. And you said, now where exactly were you stationed? What was your base?
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. We were in Landstuhl, Germany. So I was overseas in Landstuhl. And that was the middle ground between the battlefield and the state, right? So a lot of the soldiers that came to us were severely wounded. Mm-hmm. They came literally directly from the battlefield. We had helicopters that came right to us, and we literally got a call in our barracks or wherever we were, right, to say, come to the ER right now. And we would literally just get there, right? And we were we would just stabilize them. Yeah, exactly. We would stabilize them. We would take them to the OR, wherever they need to go. I mean, I had instances where some of my soldiers didn't make it, right? And I literally had to hold their hand until they didn't make it. It was,
my God, my heart, I can't. I just can't.
Yes. It was traumatic. It was very traumatic. And this is outside of regular trauma. You know what I'm saying? This is what we dealt with on a regular basis. This is what our regular day-to-day jobs were, right? Overseas.
Do you think you ever got desensitized to it?
Yes, I think we did.
A job?
Absolutely. I think we did. Yes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, yes, I think we did.
I know that it happens is why I ask, but I just can't imagine they're bringing people in the copters. So I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I am a hospital corpsman. Is what I was.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did say that.
And I didn't go because Desert Storm, which was when I served, so I'm dating myself, was coming to an end. And I didn't do field med. So my job primarily was in the pharmacy. However, I did have to go do a training, to put the tents up. And I think we were in Palm Springs, and it was like a crazy experience. It was a complete actual simulation. And so I had a different job during this, and this would have been my job if we went to war. But it was I was in charge of bringing the guys from the helicopter and putting them where they belonged. So, and that's what my job would have been had I gone according to this training exercise. And so even though it was training, it was so realistic that it was just really jarring. So it's hard for me to imagine it becoming to the point where it happens so regularly and so every day that you become desensitized to it. Yet I know that that's what happens. And that's why I wanted to ask that question, if that's what your experience was.
Yes, absolutely. It really did happen that way. We literally what's it called when you we programmed our day to include that into it. It just was so amazing to think about this because so I worked in the pediatric unit, right? So I worked with my regular day job was to help young people, right? Youth, right? And then I went into the TBI unit. So I worked with other soldiers who had traumatic brain injuries and things like that. So I worked in that unit for a little while, and I worked in the oncology unit. So I dealt with a lot of soldiers who had cancer and HIV, things like that. So I worked in that unit for a little while too. So I had, I touched every single unit. That was my regular day job. Right. And then on top of that, I had my on-call jobs, which were to save lives, save lives, right? And it was saving lives of my soldiers, right, who were out there saving lives, right? So it was an amazing opportunity, but it was traumatic because, some of the people that I saved, right, that I held the hands of, I literally held their hands, right, while they were being transported to the OR or to wherever they needed to go, right? Mm-hmm. And they would talk to me. The ones that could talk, right? Not all of them could talk, right? The ones that could talk were telling me stories about their experience, right? And it was so it really hurt, right? It was I can't even explain.
It's hard. I can imagine.
I want to cry. I can't explain it because they were just so, they were so important in this war, and I just can't explain it. I think at one point I actually watched somebody pass away while I was holding their hand, watching them back to the situation. And it just, these soldiers, you know, a lot of them were just so young, so full of life and so full of potential, right? It's just,
oh my God, yes. Okay. I know it is. Oh,
continue on.
You got me emotional. You got me in my feelings, girl. Because it's something that
continue on.
I just want to say that it is something that is so important. Like something that has always been really personally important to me, because we're so young when we go in, and all these wars that we fight, like, it's easy to forget, like, not for us because we're veterans, but for the main civilian population, to forget that all of these people were people, right? They had potential, they had dreams, they had hopes, they had a vision for the future, they had family, they had maybe children, they had best friends, they had people who love them, and they go and they serve their country and they don't ever come home. And so many of us that do come home broken and damaged and, you know, maybe even end up on the street. You know what I mean? And this is why I do what I do. This is why, you know, you do what you do with Invisible Combat. And it's just, we all understand what you're saying. Everyone that's listening that's a female veteran understands your emotion and understands what you feel. And I feel that. Like, you really got me in my feelings, because that's part of it. That's your experience. And you did that every day. And that's like, I can't even imagine that. And and it would be hard for me to live with even today, the memories of it. So I give you your props for continuing on. And speaking of continuing on, tell me more about your experience, what has happened while you were serving. And that was just work. Yes. That was just your day job.
Yes, exactly. That was my everyday job.
Yeah.
So that sucks. Like, it really did. But outside of that, right? So outside of my medic responsibilities, right? So within the first year that I had been stationed at my unit or whatever, my NCOIC, he actually committed suicide. Yeah, I don't think I told you that when we first started talking. So literally, like, within the first couple weeks when I had been there at my unit, my NCOIC, who was in charge of the anesthesiologist section or whatnot, he committed suicide. And our unit was like, kind of like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Right? And this is like the first experience that I had. I'm like, I don't know what's going on this year. Why is this happening? So after his suicide, it was very, it was very surreal for me. Like, I had to learn what that meant, right? Like, what it meant to have somebody actually commit suicide, right? In a unit. And because at that point in my life, I had no idea what mental health meant or what any of those things meant, right? Because I hadn't been exposed to any of those things. So I was really new to all of those things. And I remember after that happened, it was kind of like, similar in cohesion, right, to finding out my boyfriend at that time had passed away, right? And so my boyfriend that I was dating before I came to the military had, gotten into a car accident, right? He had gone to a car accident, right? And he had been hit by a diesel truck during a red light accident, right? So
how awful.
Yeah, and that was the man that I was dating before I went into the military. And so I was kind of dealing with that, right? When I came into the military, along with the information that I had gotten, right, from my mother at that time. So, you can understand how I wasn't dealing with that properly, right? I was trying to repress that. I was like, this doesn't matter. None of this matters, right? I'm going to go into military. Life is going to happen for me, right? It's going to be beautiful for me. I don't have to worry about this. And that's what I thought, right? That I don't have to deal with none of this stuff. None of this stuff matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case. I mean, I got right into my unit, and then, like, literally right when I got there, my NCOIC committed suicide. And
wow.
I mean, it didn't affect me as much as you would think it would affect me because I didn't really know him too well. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, this is really sad, right? So this is really sad.
Super sad.
And of course, this is sad. I'm like, we're going to move on from this, right? All of us, right? We had, we had meetings about it, and we talked about it as a unit, right? That we're going to move on from this, right? This is going to move on from. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was difficult for me to move on from because I had, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, that had committed suicide. And so it was hard for me because I'm like, I didn't deal with that, I didn't deal with that death. And I act like it didn't matter to me because I don't want to look like I was the weak person, right? When I was coming into this unit, I was coming into the new position, right? This really tough person, right? And I don't want to come with any baggage, right? I don't want to come with any other situation. Yeah. And maybe look, I was weak. And so the death of Alan, which is my boyfriend at the time, right? That made me look weak. So I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm just going to internalize this. And that was the beginning of my problems. Internalizing my situations and never talking about my problems, right? That was the beginning of the end for me. Mm-hmm. But it was a cultural component of the military. So we learned really early on in the military that we don't talk about our situations. And we suppress those situations, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, do you resonate with that?
I absolutely do. I mean, that's common knowledge. Actually, my husband, I got married when I was in the Navy really young, as we often do. And he worked on the psych ward. So he worked in psych, and it was just like well known that that's not where you wanted to go. It's like you don't go up there. Like if you have problems, that's not where you take them. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that there is a stigma. And I was aware of the stigma of going and utilizing mental health services while I was serving. I probably could have used some. I just didn't know it at the time. But I would know because there was a stigma surrounding utilization of mental health services on the base. Yeah. So, and the base is a small place and people talk. So.
Oh my gosh, exactly.
Yeah.
So after that happened, right, and the whole, the suicide happened, it was really bad, right? We had to talk a little bit about mental health, right, but it wasn't enough, right? We didn't talk enough about it. So, within a year of my time there, I unfortunately experienced a military sexual trauma while I was there. And
it's just too common.
It's very hard
to common.
Yeah, it's so hard to discuss because, like you said, it's so common and it's very it's just so preventable.
Yeah,
for it to happen, and so that's what makes me upset so much. But so I experienced a sexual trauma that left me with a mild traumatic brain injury.
Oh my
So I had a head injury during this time.
God, girl.
And yeah, it's not fun. It was terrible. It was a terrible situation, you know. But
I know, honey.
so during the time when I had that head trauma, I didn't tell anybody because so after it happened, I was so afraid to say anything because earlier I told you that I had found a family, right? And because I was adopted and I really wanted to fit in, right? It was my purpose in life, right? The purpose in life is to fit in and to find some people who love me, right? So at that point in my life, I thought I did. I thought I found people who cared about me. I felt like I had people who really loved me. And then this happened to me, right? And the individual who had assaulted me was an NCO, right? A non-commissioned officer.
No.
So, yeah, so this person who had assaulted me was a non-commissioned officer. And he was well known in the unit, so people knew who he was. So I didn't want to say anything. So right after the incident happened, I took all of my clothes, I took all of my bed sheets, everything that was evidence, right? I took it and I threw it away.
Oh, honey.
I took it and I walked over to the unit dumpster and I threw it away because I'm like, I don't want anyone to know about it. Because if they find out about it, I'll be looked at like I'm not part of the team. You know what I mean? So I was, and I know you can resonate with this because you probably have had other females who have talked about this situation, yes. Right? So they could probably resonate that they didn't want to feel like they were outside of the team. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a really, really cultural phenomenon, right? Where you feel like if you don't fit in, then you don't fit in, right? So for me, I felt like if I told anybody about it, I would not be part of the family that I was creating for myself. I was adopted, and this is my family. I'm sorry.
No. You don't be sorry. You don't ever need to be sorry. You don't have to be.
So this is my family, right? So I threw my clothes away, right? I threw my everything that was evidence, right? I threw it away. I went back. I took a shower. I washed the blood off my head, right? Because I had blood on my head because I had a head injury that I didn't know about, right? Well, I knew about it, but I didn't know about it, right? So I took a shower, everything that I needed to do to wash all the shame, all the guilt off of me, right?
Oh, honey.
I know, sorry. And so I went back to work, and I everything was back to normal. Everything's cool, right? Until I found out that I was pregnant.
Oh.
And I found out that I got pregnant about 3 or 4 weeks after the incident, right? So after I found out I was pregnant, I went to my NCOIC, and I was like, look, this is what happened. This is what's going on because I wasn't married, right? I didn't have any claim to a baby, right? So I'm like, I have to tell somebody because if I don't tell anybody, I'm going to look like I'm a slut, right? So, so I had to tell somebody. So I went and told her. And after I told her, she was like, well, tell our commander. So she went and told the commander. And when she told the commander, when she called me in, it was kind of like, it wasn't really about catching the person. It was more like she was telling me that she didn't want me to let this happen to somebody else, right? But it was like a not a trauma-informed kind of approach, right?
What?
Like we don't want this to happen to somebody else. But you have to tell us, because if you don't tell us, you're going to cause somebody else's rape, right?
Wow.
So I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know? So I'm like, I have to tell him. So for me, I felt compelled to tell him who it was. I wasn't going to tell anybody because I was afraid. Let me tell you, I was afraid of what would happen if I told him. And let me tell you, what I was afraid of happened.
Of course it did.
So it was so insane. It was like, I don't want to tell you because of what happened. But when I told you, everything I was afraid of happened.
Goodness.
So when I told him who it was, he was like, "Oh, that's a shit bag, right? He was a shit bag." So I don't know who told, but everybody found out. Every single person in my unit found out.
Oh my God.
Let me tell you what happened. I walked down the hallway and people would turn around and walk the other way.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry. You did not deserve that. 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 It is not your shame.
I would sit down and people would stand up and walk away.
And this was the family that you were so afraid to lose. And they did that to you. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I apologize.
Okay, take your time. Take your time. You're okay. This is your truth, your story. You don't have no shame to bear. These people were horrible people.
Yes. When I walked down the hallway, people would turn around and they not look at me. When I was in the cafeteria, people would get up and walk away. Or when I would. So, I'm sorry. So, when this happened, I requested to have some time off, right? Because, you know, I was like, I can't deal with this. This is not fair for me. No. So I requested to have some time off. So my command allowed me to have a month, right? It said, you would have a month off and you can go TDY for a month. So I took a month and I went home and I hung out with my friends and this is a really difficult time for me to talk because so I went home and I decided to have an abortion.
Okay. Okay, I understand.
So no, it's okay. So I decided to not have a baby because my mother and my friends were like, this is better for you because if you don't have the baby, things can go back to normal, right? So things can go back to normal. So I decided that this is what was best for me, that I could go back to my unit and never have to worry about the situation ever again, right? So
take your time.
So it makes me think about how much things can affect you many years later, right?
Yeah. Unresolved traumas. And these are trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma.
Right. So the fact that I didn't keep the child in this situation, and I went back to my unit, the JAG officer, of course, was like, we don't want to put you through this situation. So, because the fact that you didn't keep the baby, they're like, we can't hold this person accountable. Right? So,
man,
I had to live through the non-justice, right? It's me. Sorry.
You're okay.
I'm not experiencing justice because of the situation that I had experienced, right? So that was something that I had to experience as a moral injury. Because, a lot of my advocacy work that I talk about now, I talk a lot about moral injury, right? And how our moral injuries can affect our suicidal ideation. You know what I mean? So this is a huge moral injury for me as a military sexual assault survivor, because of the fact that I had to cease a pregnancy that I really wanted to keep, because I was a sexual assault product of a sexual assault, right? So for me, I really was really looking forward to keeping that a tradition, you know what I'm saying? So when it didn't happen to me, it was very difficult to overcome. I'm sorry.
It's you know what? There's a lot of strength in a woman who could survive an assault and want to keep the baby and raise the baby and love the baby just the same. That is uncommon. That is extremely uncommon and rare to find. I don't know that I could do it. I don't know that I could keep the baby. I'm astonished by that quality within you to just be able to have wanted to, because of what had happened, to bring you into the world. And it just gave you a different perspective where the baby could have been loved. So I deeply, as an empath, can feel your pain and understand how much that must have hurt you to have to do that, and how that would have deeply impacted your own life and relationships and your relationship to yourself even after the situation, and then to not get justice for the assault on top of it. It's like I said earlier, it's trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma in succession that are unresolved. So I definitely understand what you were going through at the time.
Okay. So go ahead and ask me another question.
You ready? Okay. So what was the rest of your time in like? Did you face any more obstacles while serving?
Yeah, okay. So I apologize to all your listeners that are listening, but to have me be so emotional. I'm so sorry.
And you guys, this is the first time she's telling the story, so I know you understand. You can hear it. I know that you understand. It's important to share these stories because they help not only the person who's telling them to get it out so that, it gets air on the wound so it can heal. And it helps listeners that aren't quite ready to tell their story yet, so that they know that they're not alone and that someone understands them. And of course, as I always say, this story that you're telling might be someone's survival guide. They might hear how you came through all of this and hear how you overcame so many life obstacles to be where you are now with this beautiful life and beautiful family, and creating a not-for-profit organization to help other veterans, and realize that they can do it too. They can get up out of bed. They can face their trauma. They can begin their healing journey, or continue their healing journey, or restart their healing journey, and get into a way of life that is more beneficial and more happy and more successful for them personally, and more holistic, where they feel more healed. So I can't tell you how much I admire your strength for sharing your story, raw as hell and emotional as you need to be. This is a platform for you to speak your truth. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me the rest.
What was the question? I'm sorry. What's the question? What was the question again?
The question was, what was the rest of your military experience like after you left the JAG office? You had to continue on serving, right? What was that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Now that this was the recent past.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So yes, I had to collect myself, right, and figure out how to continue on. So that was a really big part of my journey. So when I had that situation happen to me, and I continued on in my life, and I came back to my unit after I had the month off that I had. I'm not going to lie to you, it wasn't the best experience that I had. And I have a lot of other trauma experience in that. And it's important for us to talk about these experiences because it helps other individuals understand what we go through sometimes. Mm-hmm. And what experiences that we have, they may not be positive experiences, right? But they're important to understand because we as female service members, we go through these things. And these are things that we experience. Mm-hmm. So after I left that situation, everything was cool up until I got pregnant again. So I had met a man, and I got pregnant with this man, and we're about to have a baby. And during this pregnancy, it was amazing. People have pregnancies, women have pregnancies, and they're amazing. For me, it was very difficult because I had an experience, but I didn't keep the pregnancy. So the pregnancy that I was experiencing was not the best experience. It wasn't like, super joyous. I was having all of the experience of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? I'm having nightmares. I'm having the inability to sleep, and having hypersensitivity. All of those things I was having. And I didn't realize I was having those things. So I had my daughter. And that's my first daughter. And I had her. And after I had her, I committed suicide. So this was all during the time that I'm at student. So
was it postpartum in conjunction with everything?
So yes. So that's the thing is that. So I committed suicide, and a friend of mine, she was there at my house, and she was able to call for help. And someone came to get me, and they came to talk to me about what I was experiencing. a lot of the experience that I was having was that I felt alone. I felt like by myself. I felt that I was having pain outside of my physical pain. I was having emotional pain. I just didn't know how to handle it. I was able to have somebody come and get me, right, and put me into a situation where I had safety, like 24/7. So I was in a situation where I was hospitalized for about 2 months, maybe 2 months, or whatnot. And the hospitalization, occurred with other individuals who were military, right? So I had some Air Force people that were there. I can remember some of them being that, they had maybe like food processing situations or like, something like that. So I had other people that I was in that situation with. So it's really interesting because I was in that situation and I had other people that were working with me because I worked in the hospital. They came to see me there.
So while you were on the ward, you were on the psych ward? And they came to visit you, or they just were there and they saw you there? Oh. So you felt shame, you felt humiliated on top of it while you were trying to, get better.
Yes, exactly. So the experience that I was having when I was experiencing on the ward. So I was on mental health ward, and I was literally in the same situation where everybody I was working with was literally on the same floor that I was on. So it was super embarrassing. I was like drenched. I can't even explain how drenched I was in shame and guilt. I was like, shame and guilt was like all over me. You know what I'm saying? Because people that I worked with came up to the unit that I was in because I was in the hospital. And they were just like, why are you here? And what are you doing here? And they literally questioned, like, why, Kim? Why are you here? Because we don't think anything's wrong with you. It was like, and I think a lot with my people that come to my page. I'm like, the shame and guilt that you experience and that you internalize, none of that is yours. That doesn't belong to you.
That's right.
Right? That belongs to somebody else. That belongs to the man who violated you, right? That belongs to the other person. That does not belong to you. And it took me a long...
shamed you. Yeah?
Yes, it took me a long freaking time to understand that it did not belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know I cry a lot. I'm just like, I feel like I'm just too emotional right now because it's like I really want people to understand that it does not belong to you. That shame was never yours. It was never yours to take on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was never yours. Somebody else belongs. It belongs to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So for me, living in that mental health ward, right, it was very difficult for me because it was like my comrades and everybody else saw me in there, and they were like, "Oh, you're here, and you have a mental health condition, and you're crazy," Yeah. So I was so embarrassed to be in there. And let me tell you. So what happened to me? So I left that mental health ward, and I saw a mental health professional. Right. So the person who did my exit exam, he was a mental health professional. And the thing that he told me, so when I went there to him, he was explaining to me how I was a weak dog. So basically what he told me was, no offense, but we don't want weak dogs in our army.
Oh my God.
So what I learned really on in my experience in the military is that it doesn't matter what happens to you. What matters is that you don't show it. And that's not true. That's not true.
That's horrible.
You can't stop at that. So it's funny to say this right now. Like, to me, it's hilarious. You know, it's like, what the heck, right? He didn't stop at this. He said, we don't want weak dogs in the army. But then he went on to say that if you don't stop talking about what's going on with you, I will diagnose you with a personality disorder.
What? He said that he was going to diagnose you with a personality disorder if you didn't stop talking about your feelings or what happened to you or your traumas. You were going to get diagnosed with a personality disorder. And we know that means you get kicked out of the military with no benefits. He threatened you with that.
Yes, you know this now. God. But at the time that I was in this situation, I didn't know that. I know this now. I know that we can't say yes, okay, do that. Because if we do, we will be pre-diagnosed with a pre-existing condition. But the time that I was experiencing this, I didn't know this. So I was like, so he told me, if you hurt yourself, because he asked me, he said, why are you trying to kill yourself? Because I tried to kill myself. I tried to in my life. He asked me, why are you trying to do this? And I said, I don't know. I told him that I had a lot of pain inside of me, and I didn't know what to do with it. And the answer that he told me was that if I continued to do this, he would diagnose me with a personality disorder. And the problem is that I worked in a TBI clinic, so I already knew that if you don't get diagnosed with a personality disorder, that's it. You don't get to have. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
If you get diagnosed with personality disorder, you don't get to have the benefits that other people get. So I already knew that because I worked in a clinic where I served TBI patients. So the people that came to my clinic were individuals who had traumatic brain injuries. And it's really interesting to know that I had a brain injury. I had a traumatic brain injury. And nobody knew about that. Not one person in my unit that I was advocating for. And any idea that I had one.
Did you not have any symptoms, or they just didn't see them? So they didn't recognize the symptoms in you, even though they worked in that unit.
So no. Okay, so I had the symptoms. I had all the symptoms of having a brain disorder, of having lower cognitive functioning, of having like excessive sleepiness, all those things would happen, right, with a brain disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was having all those symptoms, and nobody saw that. The reason why I didn't see them was because I was a female, and they thought that I did not have those symptoms. They only saw the symptoms for those that were experiencing combat disorders. So they literally tested me for. They tested me for narcolepsy. They tested me for sleep disorders, but they didn't test me for brain disorders. I was literally experiencing a brain disorder, and I had no idea that I was having these problems.
So they're testing you for everything, but what you really had was a brain disorder.
Yes. So during that sexual assault that I had a head injury, and I was knocked unconscious. And because I didn't tell anybody about the situation, it was hard to prove.
They didn't believe that you received the brain injury during the assault, or they didn't believe you had the brain injury at all?
Okay, so when I had the brain injury, right, I asked people, because I got pregnant. The only reason why they chose to acknowledge the situation is because I got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then when I asked to go leave, and I asked to go home, they were like, okay, well, she went home and everything was fine. And when I went home, I chose to have an abortion. So when I had the abortion, we're back to a unit. Everything went back to normal. Like, the judge officer was like, well, you have more evidence, so now we're back to normal, and everything back to normal. My unit back to normal. Every person who was involved was like it never happened.
And what about the guy? Did you still have to see him every day? You did?
Yes.
That's horrible. How did you cope with that? How did you handle that?
Yes. I had to see my mistakes.
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So everything went back to normal for everybody else is my point, but not you. Number one, because you have a brain injury. Number two, because you had to give up your baby. And number three, because he got to get away with it. So while everybody, I don't even understand. Like, I'm so pissed that I can't even function properly right now. Like, I don't understand. So you just come back, and because there's no baby, everyone's like, oh, you can walk down the hall with her again and act like everything's normal. Like, what kind of disgusting people is
God, people would sit down at a table, and I would sit down, and they would like walk away.
Oh, honey. And that all changed when I came back?
It did change. It changed when I went back. When I came back after I had an abortion. It changed. So it reinforced that decision I made
And so when you told the doctor that you had so much pain inside, this is all part of it.
I told him that it hurt me really bad. That was really hurting me. He said he was sorry. He said that what he said was that he was sorry that it hurting me so bad, but he didn't want to leave dogs on me.
Oh my God. What? It is always astonishing to me what kind of people get to just roam this earth sometimes. Like, that is one of the most horrible things I've ever heard, probably in my life. It's on my list of the most horrible things I've ever heard. I mean, here you are grieving so many things, dealing with postpartum more than likely. You have a traumatic brain injury, and the doctor's telling you all this.
That's why he diagnosed me with postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm. But still told you.
Sure.
That's bad too. Here you have postpartum, and he's like, we don't want weak dogs in the army. Like, what the heck? As a woman, that's like affronts my very femininity. Like, as a mother and as a woman who dealt with postpartum depression myself, by the way, and pregnancy depression with my first son, that just is just horrible, horrible bedside manner, to say the very least. So, what happened after that? So you didn't get kicked out, and you stayed in.
No.
What happened then?
Yes, I did. Okay.
Oh, so what? Tell me, how did this occur? This is how you got out of the military. So tell me that.
Yeah. So I love the military. Everything about the military was really exciting for me, except that the leadership and the things that were really inspiring to me. They were really something that actually was negative for me.
If that sounded like it ended abruptly, well, it did. By the time we got to that part, we were both of us, emotional. And we decided to take a moment to collect ourselves, and we just couldn't. It was the first time that Kim was telling her story in public, and it's a big story, and it's full of horrible things, to be honest. And her experience, the things that she had to overcome, well, you'll hear more of that in the second part of the episode. It's coming soon, so stay tuned for that. We couldn't get back together for about 2 weeks. Life just got in the way, and COVID got in the way. And when we finally did get back together to record the second half of the story, it seemed like the whole world had changed. We had changed. And it was a privilege to sit down with Kim and hear the rest of her story. And it gets worse before it gets better. But you know what? It gets better. And I can't wait for you to hear it. So stay tuned. And thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I love you guys. And I'll see you next time.